Do you believe in the next generation? The next generation of people that will be doing amazing things in the future. But that means that looking back, they will notice that we could have done better. How can we make each generation do better things? We need to live with a growth mindset. So tonight's show is about nurturing a let's start this again. Nurturing a growth mindset when you're learning, when you're teaching, and when you are leading. And I think this is a great topic for us today. So let's see, we're going to do a quick sound test. Sound test is great. So let's see. Tonight's show is about three segments. First segment is always about how we learn and how we can grow. Second segment will be how to teach, how we can be or train as a trainer. This is this idea here and how we can help others. And at my third segment will be about leadership, leadership in our family, at work, and in our lives. So if you don't know me yet, my name is Alain Faber. I've been teaching in high school for more than 25 years, and I decided to create a podcast to share information I know, share information about what I love, and hopefully it will help you understand better how education is and how we can grow as individuals. So let's see. Our first topic today will be when you have what does it mean to have a growth mindset in learning? So here the whole idea that I had was okay, we have students in school, teenagers in high schools. We have team members within a team, and everybody's got to learn a lot of things. And what happens is that in order to be able to learn, we have somehow to be curious. We need to be in a state where we can appreciate that there are things we don't know, and that by learning something new, we can grow. And that is a key here. Now, if you think of people from little ones all the way to teenagers when they go to the workforce or post-secondary education, often these individuals are learning every day. And what happens is that once they finish, they go to the workplace, so they go beyond. Then we have to make sure that this idea of curiosity is always there. So school is not just about learning different topics, but it's also to learn how to learn so that you can keep that skill which is having a growth mindset, so that you can get better, learn new things all along your life. So here, how can we have a growth mindset when we're learning? Well, first of all, we need to have the skills to be able to filter out all the noises that are not important, to be able to focus on that one thing we need to work on. And I know nowadays we have social media, we have a lot of information coming at us all the time. But in order to be curious, in order to have, if we want to take some time to be able to focus, to learn new things, we need to be able to put all the noise away so we can focus on the possibility of learning. And that's quite exciting. And because when you think about that, the whole idea here is that we need to be able to find ways to learn despite challenges. And challenges are there all the time. If you're hungry, if you feel that you're a bit anxious, if you feel there's so much things around you, then you're more in a survival mode than in the learning mode. And that's something we need to keep in mind. And the best way to be able to keep people curious, to be able to find ways to learn, is to create or to find learning opportunities that satisfy us as human. So I have a list here of possibilities. And indeed, when you're in school, you have the classroom. If you're in the workspace, then you have a training that you need to do. Often we have in-person training. Nowadays, we have more virtual training. So what happens is that the way we learn has changed as we go along. And yes, I talked about social media earlier. I'm not saying it's bad. All I'm saying is that we need to find a way to protect our brains so that we can be available in order to have the attention span to be able to learn. So how do we do that? Classroom is a great way, training ground, great way. But there's other ways we can do it. One is through videos. So I love my YouTube channel. I'm learning to create videos, sharing what I know, because it's always something exciting for me. A lot of people learn when they listen to videos or when they watch videos. I do learn a lot when I create videos because it allows me to be in a space where I need to group all my ideas to make it available for people. So videos are great. Reading is also a great way. In a school, we have novels, we have textbooks, we have also links to websites with reputable information. And if you're a trainer or a trainee, there are always those sites where you have content managing system that allows you to follow along what you need to learn. Other things we can do is to learn by doing. So many people forget that you can watch someone do something, but not until you do it can you become better. Same thing if you're cooking. I was at school today and I was looking at the students creating little cakes in their class, and some of them were creating amazing pieces. Some of the people they were also creating amazing pieces, but I think they would taste sometimes better than they'd look. But in the idea here is that they were making something. And something that was interesting, I noticed someone who had two cake. The first one was struggling a little bit, but the second one was nice. They were nice little cake. Maybe they were, I don't know, 10 centimeters in diameter. That person had done it once and took upon herself to say, okay, let's see if I can do another one to see how I can get better. We can only get better when we do it and we are practicing. The other one I have is about modeling. A lot of people, if you give them a chance to do something, they won't be able to do it because they don't know how to start. Some people will read, but then they don't know what it means. Some other people will watch a video, but still they may not feel confident to do it. And therefore, being able to see someone do something with you and you modeling them is something amazing. That is happening at all ages. If you're in a kindergarten, for example, if you're in my science lab, if you're in the kitchen, or if you are a welder, or if you are in construction, you learn by doing. But how do you get to do the best work you can? By actually modeling a master electrician, a master plumber, a master welder, and then you make it your own, and then you are great. Because the whole thing here is that if you want to learn, you need to find a way to be curious, but also be able to have available to you a variety for you to learn. Now, it's not just the idea of learning. You need to get to a point where whoever's learning with you, and if it's you learning, you need to find a way to teach it to another person. So in my class, sometimes when we are learning a new concept, then we are doing a lab. I model what I would like them to do, and then they can create other things. And I just lost my train of thoughts. That's okay. So for example, we've been doing labs in science all semester. For the last lab of the semester, they had a chance to choose the lab they wanted to do. So they proposed to me what they wanted to do, and then they carried out the lab. And I think I may have mentioned that last week as well. Some people had great ideas because along the semester, as we were doing labs, some people say, "Oh, I'd like to know more about this." So many labs were about that. Other people say, "Well, I saw something on a video. I just want to try it." Well, trying it is the best thing. For some, I was with them because they wanted me to do the first try so that they would see what is supposed to happen. And as soon as we did the first time, then they felt better and they were able to move on. That was quite exciting. And there's one student in my class, and the person did not want to choose a topic. And the person wanted to say, "Okay, I would like you to tell me a topic and give me the equipment, and then I'll figure out from here." And that's what happened to the person, because there's a lot of different ways of learning. And some people, they like to explore. Some people like to do what they want to be given a situation and then for them to solve it. So that's the whole idea of growth mindset in learning. It's the whole idea that you are being curious. You're in a situation where you need to push all the noise around so you can focus on one thing. And some people say, well, with the social media age, people have an attention span of 10 seconds, and that's about it. Well, that's not true. We spent all of last week to come up with ideas, come up with questions, set up materials, do a data collection, and we spent the whole week on that. And many people had to redo their experiment. So what happens is that they were able to practice as they were doing things, and they all so much better for that. And this week they're presenting their information, and I'm learning as they are teaching me what they've learned through the experimentation. And that's this idea here. One important aspect of learning is to be able to teach it to another person. And that brings me to the second segment of this podcast about teaching. And here I titled it Growth Mindset in Teaching. It could also be growth mindset in training as a trainer. So the whole idea here is if you want to teach, the best way is to be able to take all the noise in your mind, set them aside so that you can focus on the most important people, and it's the people you are with. Every day in my class, before I start class, I take this one corner of the board. I always write the date. I always say good afternoon or good morning. Then I outline what are each of the steps we're going to do, or each of the segments of the class. And I even put the word break in the middle, so people know exactly what we need to do. But one of the key reasons why I do that is that as I write it down, I put my mind on what I want to do, and then it allows me to put aside all the noise so that I can know what is the most important thing for me for the next 75 minutes. And then I turn around and then I tell students, okay, this is the plan for today. I outline it with them, and then I ask if there's any clarification questions, and then we go from there. And you know what? They love that because they know what to expect. And they also know that there's a break coming up. And that's something that I've learned in the last couple of years, where in the past we just went on different activities. We think of transition time. But in high school, I realized that students, all they want sometimes is just 5 minutes to regroup, not having to think about what's going on in class, not having to work on anything. So I set up my lessons and my activities and group work and discussion within the 75 minutes. That includes a 5 minutes where the only thing I want them to do is think about themselves, their friends, and so on. And it works marvelously well. Okay, so the whole idea here is that you want to teach, but you want to teach despite challenges. As I mentioned earlier, we want to learn despite challenges. We also want to teach despite challenges. Now, teaching is not easy. And the whole idea here is the more you do it, the better you get. And in order to do this, you need to be able to find, okay, what are the transferable skills that I can learn, that I can apply to many classes, many levels, many activities, so that I can become better. Now, there's one word that some people talk about sometimes. It's differentiated learning. So when you create your lessons, you are approaching the learning from different aspects. So as I mentioned in the learning section, you want to have some lessons, you can have videos, you can have things to read for students, you can have them do some activities, and you can show them something and model for them what is next for them. Because interestingly enough, as different students are learning differently, teachers are teaching differently and they have different strengths. Some teachers, if you give them a voice, they are amazing. Other people, if you give them the tools, they are amazing to help people. And what happens is that often we forget that we all have our strengths, and we forget that this can be used for other people in other classes. And one of the reasons I learned that is that I remember a few years back when every year I teach 6 courses. And if you think of the courses I've taught over the years, many of the years I've had 5 different classes, sometimes 6 different classes. And often they would include science and math and drama and language learning. And sometimes it would be geography. So what happened is every time you teach a different topic, then there's different things to learn, different activities. Drama is quite different than math. But what happens is that you can find a way to say, okay, what are the things that are common to all of those topics that you can bring in to make it work nicely? And it's not easy. Only experience can make it work. And some teachers or new teachers will say, well, I could learn from a veteran teacher, for example, and or I could visit someone else's class just to see how they do things. And I think that's something that is worth discussing, because I think more and more people may not want to put their teaching style online. However, they may want to see, they may want to welcome teachers in their classroom. Then it's a bit more intimate, and then it's less stressful as well. So these are kind of interesting. So for example, if you think of transferable skills, so because I've taught language art and science and math and so on, in many of my classes, I have a lot of literacy activities within my science class. So what's vocabulary, how to better communicate your ideas in writing and verbally. So these are skills that I teach in my language class, that I teach in my science class, because I know that students, if they can communicate better, first of all, they feel better being able to share the ideas, but also it builds their confidence. And for teachers, it's so much easier when students realize that, yeah, if I can put my ideas together in a nice way, people can understand what I want to say, either as part of a paragraph, an essay, a lab report, and so on. It's kind of interesting. Another thing I do is numeracy. When I was teaching math, often you have the numeracy skills. There you go, graphing, gathering data, and often in science it works nicely, but it works nicely in geography too. And I love to be able to say, okay, let's see if we can do some reading. Let's put a situation. Let's get some data and graph it, and let's see what is the story behind the data. So it's not anymore me talking about a graph and telling me what the graph looks like. It's me asking the students, tell me the story behind the graph. And it makes so much fun for the students, because then they take the graph as the setting of a story. And if you've done English language art, for example, and you have a novel, then you have the beginning of a sentence, beginning of a book, and then there's some actions, and then some drawback, and then there's the climax, and then there's resolution of a story. So this is like in the shape of a graph. But any graph you have, regardless if it's in a company profits, regardless if it is a change in water temperature in the ocean, and so on. Interestingly enough, if you can put a story behind the graph, it's so much more fun for you, but also for the audience, wanting to understand what you've learned from your research. So that's something I love to do. And the whole idea here is that when you want to teach better, it's not just thinking, okay, I want to do differentiated instructions, and it becomes a checklist. At some point you say, okay, let's see if I can, what is my toolbox so that I can create I can create learning opportunities as a teacher. I can create learning opportunities as a trainer. So it's going beyond just a checklist saying, okay, I want to do differentiated learning. I want to do some project-based learning, a modern classroom. There's several theory out there of how you can use a checklist to do what you need to do. However, if you bring in the idea that, okay, let's bring creativity, stories, then you realize that, okay, things don't have to be complicated. You just need to say, okay, what can we do to make it fun, to make it creative, so that learning can happen? And you as a teacher get excited for that. Because often I listen to teachers, and I do think that sometimes the profession doesn't have all the glory it can have. It is a hard job. And I think we forget to communicate and discuss all the fun things that can happen when you are learning as a teacher, as a trainer, as a leader, and as you are learning and teaching and so on. It's amazing. that brings me to the third segment of this podcast. And I call this one Growth Mindset as as a leader, or growth mindset in leadership. There you go. And the whole idea here I have is that in order to have a growth mindset in leadership, you need, as all the previous two segments, you need to be able to filter out the noise. As a leader, you have a lot of things you need to do, a lot of goals you need to achieve. There's a KPI, so key productivity index, a lot of different points that you need to achieve. There's so much noise. But when you say, okay, if you were able to put together uh, your goal, what you want to achieve, and set aside all the noise that is out there, then you can focus on what's the most important, and it is your team. It could be your team as part of a team leader, as a family, as the head of a family, in your community, or even in your school and classroom. And it's kind of interesting. So the whole idea here in leadership, because I love this idea of leadership and to be a better leader, is that the more you learn about leadership, the more you learn that you don't know. And it's important because once you realize that you don't know what you don't know, and there's so much more to know, then you become a person who's listening. And I think one of the key quality of a good leader is to be able to listen. Because once you listen, then you can lead despite all the challenges that can be there, because you're focusing on the present moment, and then you can look at the situation and get all the information needed to actually make a decision so you can go on to the next part. And I think it's quite important. What else I have here? So how can you get a team to have a growth mindset? Because sometimes we say, oh, it's easy to talk. Many of us individually, we are amazing people. But as part of a team, it's not always obvious. So here are some ideas. If you're part of a team and you want to promote growth mindset as a leader, one thing you can do is collaboration in to make the team better, to make the culture of a company better, to do activities so that the input from different people are included in the decision-making process. I think it's kind of fun because then people realize, I have an idea. Let's see if I can share it to make everybody's life more exciting. Because keeping in mind that the best way to have a growth mindset as a leader is to be curious about what you want to do and what your team needs to do, but also be curious about the individuals in your team, because we're all humans. And if you consider the human factor of who we are, it's so much more fun. The other one to keep in mind is to foster a learning culture. So for me, my perspective is, if you have a growth mindset as a leader, you are part of a team, and it's not a dictatorship. I'm not talking about micromanaging. I'm talking about the fact that a leader is looking at his team or her team and guiding the participants or the team members towards their best self. So that means that in order to do that, you need to be able to learn yourself, but allow your team members to be able to learn, to know that whatever they're doing is very important, but also going beyond, learning something new is important, because otherwise you don't want to be in a situation where your team or your family or your classroom have been doing the same thing over and over for the last 5 years, for the last 15 years. Growth needs to happen, and that's how we can have a team that is growing, but also people excited about joining. Another point interesting is having ongoing feedback. And it's an interesting point because in my classes, I always give feedback to my students, because as we are doing activities, I listen to ideas they have, we have a discussion, and then I let them go with the ideas. So for example, I have a business class and in communication technology, and we're doing presentations on their portfolio. And many of them, actually most of them, when I ask them, what is your favorite project? So we had 7 units, we had 7 projects this semester, and many of so it's all even in which project they like. Many people like the one on entrepreneurship. Other people love the one in with spreadsheets. Other people love to how to create better presentations. And the reason why they chose whichever unit they preferred is that they had the choice to choose the topic. They had the choice to do what they wanted. And so the idea here is that they all got to the same place, but they all had different topics to research about, to present. And that's an example where I could have told them, okay, you are all doing this project on that topic. First of all, it's not as interesting for students, and for teachers, it's not as interesting because you need to listen to presentation or read reports about the same topic. So the idea here is being open to guide students and people to learn better, to teach better in their own ways, still going towards the main goal. That's important. And there you go. And let's see the feedback. Oh yeah. One other thing is, often if you think of, and I'm not sure if you are like that, but if you're part of a team, you might feel sometimes that it's a bit lonely. Sometimes people say, okay, here's what you have to do. And we're all great people with a lot of skills. We know what we have to do and we do it well. However, doing something very well, often people don't stop questioning it. And then you are siloed in one topic. And then either you're not given the opportunity to learn something new, or people don't realize that there's more you could do as part of a team. And sometimes you have teams where people are having discussions every week. Some teams are having discussions quarterly. Some other teams have discussions on how they're doing every year for feedback. But when you have feedback for timeline longer than 1 year, what happens is that then the feedback becomes almost non-existent. And having feedback that is almost non-existent, then at some point, if someone needs help, then they forget to ask for help, and then the collaboration may not happen as much. They're not as curious, and then people sometimes they sit and they fit in their mold and don't go beyond that. And that's why I think that having feedback, giving feedback, and asking questions, and basically asking people for feedback is a great way. Now, in my career, I've had a chance to be having a lot of feedback. I do feel that as teachers, I think more feedback would be interesting. But that's my personal choice. Some people say, I don't want to have to be evaluated every year. I just want to be evaluated less often, as long as what is the minimum I need to do. Whereas I do believe that the more feedback you get, the more you have a chance to learn from the different people you are with. And the feedback doesn't have to be from your leader. It can be with your colleagues. You meet together, you discuss, you collaborate, and I think that's a great way, because learning to share ideas and making sure that your team works best is a great way to grow. So today's topic is about growth mindset, and I called it Nurturing a Growth Mindset in Learning, Teaching, and Leading. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, because you know what? Every time we are thinking about what we can do to grow is a great day. On this, I believe in you. I'm going to put the link here. I don't know if I can put links, but anyway, a podcast is there on my channel. Lots of videos about all kind of topics about leadership, and I'm starting new videos weekly on teaching and learning. So I'm here for you, and hopefully you're gonna have an amazing day. On this, have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.